Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. This week, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is now facing two scandals over his administration's withholding of the number of coronavirus deaths in New York nursing homes, and now also in the past week over allegations of sexual harassment from two former staffers and a third woman. It has been a swift fall from grace for the governor, who last year won high marks for his handling of the COVID crisis during the height of the pandemic. The state's attorney general is moving forward with an investigation into the sexual harassment allegations, while there's also a federal investigation into the nursing home deaths. The governor this week apologized, but said he will not resign, as many Republican and even some Democratic lawmakers have demanded.
First, I fully support a woman's right to come forward. And I think it should be encouraged in every way. I now understand that I acted in a way that made people feel uncomfortable. It was unintentional, and I truly and deeply apologize for it. I feel awful about it, and frankly, I am embarrassed by it.
Among those who have called on the governor to step down is North Country State Senator Dan Stec.
Both of these scandals independently are very concerning, and I think one could reasonably argue or call for resignation on each of them separately. And certainly, you know, when it comes to the legal standards and criminal conduct and all that, of course, a full investigation, get all the facts out. But for me, this is about the ability to lead, the credibility of holding this office now. You know, regardless of where any criminal investigations go, either into the nursing home issue or into the sexual harassment issues, the thing is that now this governor's paralyzed. He's got a credibility issue. In both of these instances, there's been an omission. You know, certainly his own chief or senior staff member admitted and was caught on tape admitting that they withheld nursing home data. They concealed it intentionally as a cover-up. They admitted and were caught admitting to a cover-up. So that investigation will wind itself through, and we'll see where that takes it. But there's an admission that they covered up and they lied to the public and to the legislature. There's a long pattern of conduct by the governor. It's been worst kept secret in Albany about generally him and his senior staff being very abusive to people in general that work there. And but you know, certainly now we've had two former staff members and a third non-staff member talking about Governor Cuomo's personal behavior and personal conduct.
I know when you first called for his resignation last weekend, you pointed out the fact that he shouldn't be allowed to appoint his investigator. That did change as the weekend went on, as we got into the beginning of this week with the Attorney General taking over the investigation. With that happening, does that change your mind at all about allowing the investigation into the sexual allegations to play out and see what comes of that before demanding that he step down?
I think that it's just absolutely absurd for somebody, especially somebody with a law degree and used to be the Attorney General of the state of New York, to suggest that they should pick their own investigator to investigate themselves. I mean, that's just crazy. That's not how American criminal justice works anywhere, nor should it. And it's just absolutely obscenely stupid to suggest that he should appoint his own investigator. You know, I didn't mention before, but additionally in here, he personally, allegedly, and I believe Ron Kim, he personally threatened a member of the legislature. I mean, that's just unacceptable. Any one of these is unacceptable behavior, and I think people could say he should resign. For me, it's a combination of all of them. I wasn't the first to call for his resignation, and I certainly won't be the last.
What impact is all of this having on the legislature? Is it making it difficult or impossible to get work done? As you mentioned, a $180 billion budget that needs to get worked on and passed by the end of the month.
We know how to pass legislation. We've been meeting in session, so mechanically, the process is there, it's in place. There's no reason for us not to be able to do our job. But now I just question the ability of our partner in government, the governor, his ability to focus on what is one of the biggest budgets in the whole country. And we've got a lot of financial problems in the middle of all this COVID-19.
The U.S. House has passed President Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. It looks as if the Senate is positioning itself to follow suit. It appears that New York State is poised to get the full $15 billion. Will that help make a lot of the decisions having to do with the budget easier, at least for this year? Will that take care of the huge multi-billion-dollar deficit that the state is facing for the next couple of years?
Well, I mean, certainly $15 billion on a $180 billion budget, that's 9% of the whole pie. I mean, that definitely moves the needle. There's no question that the budget will be much easier to do with this $15 billion than it would without it. So in that regard, it'll be helpful to a lot of places, a lot of people that have been calling my office concerned about their funding, whether it's the schools or the highway departments or the libraries. I mean, you name it, our disabled population. I mean, there's a lot of significant funding that's in the state budget year in and year out for these populations, and they've all been put on notice, or their money's been put on hold for the last year. You might be looking at a 20% cut. I mean, 20% cut on things that are already running pretty lean, is devastating to them. So yes, but the details are still yet to be seen. Now the bigger picture I have, or the longer term picture I have, is this just kicking the can down the road and concealing, our real financial issues? We had a big structural financial problem with the state's budget before COVID. It was a $6 billion gap before COVID, and not getting better. I mean, we have made a lot of poor decisions as a state of New York when it comes to our finances over the last several decades, and it hasn't been getting any better.
You were quite disappointed with the governor's decision not to support a broadband study that would have analyzed coverage statewide to see where there are significant gaps, especially in rural areas of New York. He declined to support that bill. So what happens now? Is there money in the state budget for the build out of broadband to continue, or is the only thing for broadband in the budget the $15 service charge that the governor proposed in his State of the State to help lower income families afford a broadband service?
This was a bill that was passed with near unanimous support in both houses. So it's completely bipartisan bill because the work is needed. In order to finish the broadband connections, we need to have a granular map that shows exactly where the shortages are so that we can move forward and knock those out. He vetoed the bill at the end of January. So he cost us 6 months there, where he could have just said no back in July, and we would have come up with Plan B. But the other thing that's infuriating is that when he pocket vetoed it, his spokesperson trotted out in front of the cameras and said that this was going to be in the budget, that there would be funding in the budget to address what this bill that he allowed to veto would have accomplished. And in his 30-day amendments, they didn't deliver. It's not in there. So they forgot, or we were lied to. But the bottom line is that the promise that was made that this was going to be in the governor's version of the budget is untrue. It's not in the budget. Can it be negotiated into the budget? Yes, but as it stands right now, he's hanging his hat on, I'm going to make it affordable. If it's not available, it doesn't matter what the cost is. And we've got an availability problem that needs to be addressed before we worry about an affordability problem.
You took part in the chamber legislative breakfast last week and virtual this year, and you said the state, you gave the state a grade of below average with the rollout. Have things improved within the last few weeks with more vaccine available, more sites being open? Have things improved dramatically, or do you still have concerns about the rollout and that it's getting to all the people who need it?
Well, I would say that they improved. I'm not sure I'd say they've dramatically improved, but we've been tracking well, first of all, there was a piece of legislation that I put forward that would require Department of Health to update their website that shows county by county where the vaccines were being administered, because they weren't releasing that information. People were very suspicious. Hey, are all these going downstate? Are these going to New York City? And they're not coming to the North Country. I'm pleased that without acting on the legislation, the Department of Health must have seen my calls for increasing their level of detail and their transparency. And so they've done that. And you can see now on the vaccine tracker that vaccines are flowing into the counties, all the counties. They lowered the age. They made everyone and their brother eligible. And so now you've got 9 or 10 million New Yorkers that all think that, hey, all I got to do is find a way to get online and sign up for a vaccine and I can go get it. And they were finding out that they had to wait weeks and had to drive 3 hours in the dead of winter across the Adirondacks to get their vaccine. So, I mean, these are the mistakes that the governor made. He would have been wiser to use the county departments of health to vaccinate people, because that's what they're geared for and that's what they've been training to do. They do that every year with flu shots. And sometimes you got to listen to the locals, the people that are on the ground that know how to get the vaccines in people's arms. So it's an improvement. I still give us a passing, but not a very impressive grade when it comes to vaccine distribution.